Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am showing you my favorite Thanksgiving recipes. They're all kind of like sides, and also sometimes I don't like saying this because I feel like it scares people away, but as always, all of my recipes are naturally gluten-free. So just in case you have somebody in your family who has a gluten intolerance or celiac, you can always come to my channel for gluten-free recipes. So the very first thing I did was just write down everything I was going to be needing as well as the recipes, and then got all of my ingredients ready. So I decided to prepare my butternut squash for our butternut squash mac and cheese and our sweet potatoes in the oven, since I found a recipe where basically you can just cook them both on 425 for about an hour. So that will just save us time and is more convenient to be able to put both in at the same time. If you're not stubborn like me, you can go ahead and throw your squash in the microwave for a couple of minutes and it'll be easier to cut, but I was already there and I didn't feel like putting it in the microwave. You can also cut it and make it in the Instant Pot. There's tons of ways that you can prepare it, but I just wanted to have them both in the oven at the same time and out of my way. So as you can see, I just put some olive oil down on the baking sheet, and now I'm just going ahead and putting some holes into my sweet potatoes with a fork. And then I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on top of them as well. And then we're going to pop that in the oven for 425 for an hour. So I forgot about my Brussels sprouts, which is why I didn't wash them in the beginning with the other things. But I remembered, so I'm just washing our Brussels sprouts now, and I'm going to trim them and cut them in half. Then we're going to be making them on the stove top with a few pieces of bacon. I think I did like 8 pieces of bacon. You can also do this in the oven if you want, but I'm just cooking it on the stove top. I need a recommendation for a good, natural, like non-toxic pan that is much bigger than the one I had, because I literally had to make this in batches because this is the biggest pan that I have. You will notice in this video I am all over the place because this is truly how I'm cooking for Thanksgiving, and I'm sure that all of you cook the same way. You know, you're not just doing one thing at once if you're making a bunch of different recipes. So we had our Thanksgiving last weekend. Everything was delicious just because our baby is going to be born so soon. She will be here before Thanksgiving, and I obviously don't want to take a newborn out anywhere. So that is why we had an early Thanksgiving, and it was amazing. So while my bacon is crisping up a little bit, I'm going to start on our cranberry sauce. I'm doing 2 bags of cranberries, so I'm doing 2 cups of orange juice. You can completely just use water and sugar if you want. You don't have to use the orange juice. I noticed that the orange juice makes it a sweeter cranberry sauce versus a more tart cranberry sauce, so it kind of just depends on what you like. So I just did 2 cups of orange juice, 1 cup of sugar, and then I'm adding in my 2 bags of cranberries. So once the cranberries start to kind of boil, you let them boil for 5 minutes and then turn it on low, or you can turn it completely off. It's up to you. If you like a more jelly consistency, it does get more jelly-like as time goes on, even with all of this liquid. But if you want a more jelly-like consistency, you can, kind of just drain the cranberries out. So now I'm just taking the sweet potatoes and the butternut squash out and giving them some time to cool off so that I can handle them. And the cranberry sauce has cooked for 5 minutes, and I'm just pouring it into this dish and letting it sit and get a little bit more jelly-like. My Brussels sprouts are browned enough, so I'm adding the bacon back in to kind of mix all those flavors together and let the bacon crisp up even more. I will say I like them in the oven for different reasons. I feel like they come out a little bit more oily on the cooktop, whereas in the oven they are a little bit more crispy, but they still turned out really, really well. I'm putting them into this dish here. I'm trying to make it easy for me to be able to bring all of this stuff to my mom's house with me. So that's why I'm using these dishes and just keeping them in there. And so when I get to her house, all I have to do is just warm them up in the oven on 350 for about 5 minutes. So now that this is, you can still see it's steaming, but it's cool enough for me to be able to use my hands. I'm putting all of our butternut squash in a blender. I basically just wanted to get the butternut squash and the whole dish out of the way, but now I'm moving on to our carrots. I am doing 1/3 cup of brown sugar and 1 stick of butter with 1 bag of baby carrot. So now that that is all melted together, I'm just throwing in the bag of baby carrots, and I'll kind of just watch this and let it sit until you see that the carrots are softened and that the brown sugar and butter is more like a syrupy consistency. I'm also adding some salt and pepper. Now that I'm letting the carrots sit and cook and kind of just soften and get that syrupy texture on the outside, I am heading back over to my butternut squash mac and cheese. I have water boiling for my pasta, and then in my blender here I just have the squash along with 2.5 cups of milk, salt, and 3/4 teaspoons of paprika. I'm just going to blend it until it's nice and smooth, and then I'm going to mix it with our pasta once it's done and top it with some cheddar cheese. So our squash blend is completely blended. I kind of just have it sitting off to the side while the pasta cooks. And now I'm working on my sweet potatoes. Some were harder to get out because the sizes are just completely different. So the cook times were a little off, but they came out pretty easily, and they were all like that perfect consistency. You can completely change this recipe to however you want it. I am doing 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and 1/4 cup of milk in here. I'm just going to stir it all together and then put it into a baking dish and just top it with a little bit of honey. You can top it with syrup, whatever you want, and then I'm going to put marshmallows on top. My sister makes it with pecans, and I love that as well. If you want that extra added crunch, and then once you get to wherever you're going, you just pop it in the oven on 350 until everything is nice and warm through and your marshmallows are nice and browned. Okay, our pasta is in. I just used one box. You can use up to 16 ounces for the amount of butternut squash that I made. But now we are moving on to some delicious desserts. So luckily, being gluten-free, you can still enjoy tons of delicious food and delicious desserts. And one of those things is chocolate pudding pie in a gluten-free graham cracker crust. My local Giant sells the graham cracker crust, and if you have like a Wegmans near you, I know they sell it as well. So I just got that, and then I'm mixing 8 ounces of softened cream cheese with 1 cup of milk that I had sitting out for a little bit, and then 2/3 cups of cold milk, 1 package of the 5.9 ounces of chocolate, Jello pudding, and you just beat it all together, and it comes out perfectly. I'm letting that sit for a second because my pasta was done and I didn't want it to get too smushy. So now I'm going to go ahead, drain out the water, and then add in my butternut squash and top with cheese. And back to our chocolate pudding pie. I'm just mixing it one more time to make sure it's nice and fluffy, and then just adding it into my pie crust here. You can top this with whatever you want. You can add peanut butter to it and then add some Reese's on top. That was something I was dreaming of, but some people in my family cannot have peanut butter, so I didn't do that. Reese's are life. I love Reese's. Anyway, this is my pregnant talk now. It's also really yummy if you top it with some whipped cream as well, and this is really easy to take with you. It comes with a little plastic lid. Just stick it right in the refrigerator. It's served cold and it's delicious. Now I am working on our final recipe, which is a delicious apple dip. While Chris makes me laugh at something, I'm not exactly sure what, but again, I'm using 8 ounces of cream cheese, and then I'm also using 1/3 cup of sugar. Just gonna mix that all together until it's like nice and fluffy. It tastes so good. I literally just want to use this for my icing all the time. Probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but again, this is like the easiest recipe and everyone loves it. And like I said, it's naturally gluten-free. So I'm just going to put my cream cheese into the bottom of a dish. I didn't really have a better dish for this. I wish I had like a flatter dish, but this is how I had to make it. This is what I had. I'm spreading it all out, and then all I'm doing is topping it with a caramel dip. Just make sure that your caramel dip is gluten-free. Most of them are. Some do contain wheat, but just check the back and make sure that it doesn't have gluten in it if you're gluten-free. And you're going to top the cream cheese with it, and then put on some Heath Bar toffee bits, which is like my favorite froyo topping as well. That and wet walnuts. I don't know, I have weird taste. But just spread that all over, top it, and then throw it in the fridge for whenever you are ready to go. You can put this out as an appetizer. We put it out as a dessert with some fresh cut apples. So the last thing I'm doing before I wrap everything up is just adding a tablespoon of maple syrup to my Brussels sprouts and bacon. Gonna mix it all up and then just put everything away. But I hope that you all enjoyed this video and that it gave you some ideas for Thanksgiving or just for any kind of meal. They're all relatively easy and delicious, absolutely delicious. I know that you will love everything. So again, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you this Sunday at Sundays at Tiffany's for a Get It All Done.